Hello, hello. What's up, Xiomara? How are you all? What's up, Joe? How is everyone on this fabulous Friday? Sorry, I'm just looking out the window there. I'm doing fabulous. Adorable. I like your name. Are you living the dream? That was one of my old phrases. You probably didn't hear me saying it. I used to say it at my old job all the time. Living the dream. But when I was saying it, I didn't really mean it. I was being really sarcastic. What's up, Bella? Are we all living our best lives, I hope? Or choosing to? Deciding to? You say it for the same sarcastic reason? It's better than saying something shitty, right? You're living fab? Good answer. Hey, Becca. Thank you for you guys giving the hearts already. That is very nice. I'm cuddling my cat while watching this live. It's the perfect way to end my day. Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I like that you're choosing to hang out with me at the end of the day. What's up, Crystalite? My friend joined a coven today. I don't know what to tell her. Well, all right, here's the thing. I love that word, coven. I love witchy things. You know, I don't claim to be no witch, but what are spells? They're just conscious manifesting with some extra things. Like what am I thinking of? I don't know, like witch's brew. If anybody's an actual witch and they're hearing me talk like this, like I mean no disrespect. But I just love witchy vibes, but you don't need all the little extra things. Like we don't need a dash of cinnamon or a dash of, oh, what are some other ones? I can't think of any. Worm's wort. You don't need all those little placebo things, but whatever. So what to tell her? Oh gosh, the smart ass of me wants to say, well, I guess you're in a coven too, because I would love for us to be in a coven, our little manifestation coven, just because I like the word. And it was my very favorite season of American Horror Story. My most favorite ever was the coven one. I think I've said that before. Or yeah, sage your house. Yeah. Oh, Sarah, how are you? Miss Pretty Kitty. Yvonne, the well-preserved woman. I love that name, by the way. If I revised a situation that occurred with another individual years ago to have never occurred, would they have no memory of that situation since it never happened? Yes, that is possible. I know it sounds crazy, but it is. And why do you think that is? Revision is no different than, this is how I think of revision. So I'm assuming that if you're watching one of my live streams, you have already accepted that you are manifesting all the time, consciously or unconsciously, right? I'm assuming you've already accepted that. So I'm also assuming then you know that linear time is not real. It's just a concept that humanity has agreed to live with to make sense of the frames, right? The individual frames, or, reality frames, or each moment. So knowing that, when I think of linear time, I think of it like an arrow, right? And the little, whatever the little pointers are at the end of an arrow on each end, pointing in these directions. I'm so good at describing things. So I think of revision as going backwards. and regular conscious manifestation going forwards. That's how I think of it. But coupling in there, that linear time isn't real, right? Okay. So when you're consciously manifesting anything, you're kind of going forward. The only difference is revision, you're going backwards. And how are you going backwards? You're not literally going backwards. You're just going back to a memory. But when you think of it in the bigger scheme of things, really everything is a memory because all time is now. And if everything already exists, creation is finished, everything is a memory. Kind of is. Anyway, so yes, it would change. Let me explain though, because, all right, let's say you have, I'm looking for, okay. This is the reality that you're living in right now. This is the reality where your revision worked and that event never happened. Sorry, I thought my boyfriend was home already. So this is the one we're in right now. The original event that you're revising is on this timeline. You're not technically going back to that event and erasing it. You're leaving the timeline and you're hopping to the reality where it never happened. And that is the reason why your person or anybody else that was involved with whatever you're revising would have no memory of it because it never happened in this timeline. Does that make sense? And listen, if you're a very logical person, I wouldn't be surprised if you doubted that that was possible. So even through doubt, it can still be done. If that makes you feel better, just saying. How can I manifest 50K to stay home after a baby? First of all, I know you can do it because I did it. So my advice to you is, number one, really think about, contemplate in your imagination how your life would be different with the 50K. What would your everyday normal life look like now if all of that were true, if that had already happened? Because in one respect, it already did happen. Remember, we're pulling from the infinite. Creation is finished. It's already done. Blah, 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 blah. And really think about you yourself and what would be different about you if that were true, if that had actually happened. How would you be different? How would you feel about life? How would you, carry yourself, whether you're just walking around your house or out in the public? What would be different about you? Because there would be something different, just something slight, nuanced about you. So you contemplate that, you think about that in imagination. Now, once you've done that, and you now have that mental idea of who you would be if this manifested, and then you identify as that version of yourself from this point on. Now, if you're already of the awareness of who your true self is, your consciousness, right? You're not just username Crystal. You're not just Crystal. You're Crystal, whose true consciousness is the I am, or God, right? The breath you take, the light of your spirit is God. So you're not just Crystal doing this all by Crystal's little self. It's Crystal and God together, doing this together. Think of it that way, because that's what your consciousness is. So let's say right now, you've already did the things I just asked you to do to even just get the idea of who you would be. Now, we close the door to the world of the senses. In other words, the 3D reality. We close the door to 3D reality. Yes, you still have to live and intermingle with 3D reality, but we don't let any evidence or lack thereof evidence deter you from the new identity. And as I was starting to say about, I'm assuming you're already of the awareness that you are pure, unadulterated consciousness. You are the I am, experiencing physical reality. So this does not mean that you have to walk around every 50 seconds and tell yourself that you're the new identity. No, you being of the awareness of who you really are is enough. So in other words, let's say, I don't know, something showed up in reality that reminded you that you don't have the 50K yet. Your response to that, at minimum, right? Because you might have a reaction. No big deal. If we reacted to it, okay, fine. That moment's over. Now we're back, remembering who we are again. You just remembering, I am source, right? I'm source of my reality. I'm source. This is done. It's already mine, right? I already have this. Everything is fine. Everything is working out. You don't have to be afraid if we don't see proof of it yet. Everything is working out. It's being taken care of. That's enough for that to unfold. Now, I know that that's kind of not what, I don't want to say a large majority, maybe half of what the manifestation community says to do. Normally, the response is, let me give you a set of affirmations to say, or let me help you come up with a visual. These are all techniques that are irrelevant once you're aware of who you really are. And your only job, truthfully, from that point on, once you yourself have come into the awareness that you are source, the I am, whatever you want to call it, from this point on, everything is you remembering that, reminding yourself of that. Vadim Zealand would call it like being the keeper of the mind. Because that's the only thing that matters. What your conscious choice is. You don't have to sweat the subconscious. You concern yourself with the conscious mind, who you are in the conscious mind. And I'm telling you, it'll happen. And I'm telling, Jesus Christmas, I'm so sorry. I'm telling you that because I did it. So I know you can do it. And I want you to know that, yes, I did it, but I also wavered my ass off consistently, and it still manifested. Just want you to know that. That's why you don't hear me making a lot of content about don't react to the 3D, because I just think that's silly. We're human. We're going to have our moments. I know I had my moments, but it still showed up. Okay? Through all your clients besides me, has anyone else had dreams like me that led them to SP manifesting? Not to the depth and the specifics of the dreams you have, no. But I hope you don't look at that like, so that must mean it's not going to work for you, because I don't think that. In fact, I hope you don't take offense to this, but like, you're my guinea pig, my friend. I cannot wait. I meant that in the nicest way. Guinea pigs are cute. I meant it in a nice way. I am manifesting with you, from my perspective. I am. Because once that's there, you are going to be mentally what I refer back to if anybody else ever has the same experience. So, you're like my star pupil, and I mean that with the most love. Not that you need me to manifest with you. But I just want to say, Ziomara, number one, as far as anybody else having these experiences, they might and maybe just haven't shared them with me, right? Number one, so maybe other people experience it too. Number two, if I were you experiencing the depth of dreams and other, I'm going to say altered states of consciousness that you've experienced, I would be looking at that as a good thing, not a hindrance to what you want. In fact, I would look at it as all the more reason that you should feel comfortable knowing this is going to happen. It's going to manifest. And I see you myself as someone very with an expanded awareness, very much so. So I think it's only a good thing. I have a wild story for you, Kim, that I had just remembered. Hey, speaking of you, handsome Twitter, did you get my email? Because I'm the one who sent it. Normally I have someone working with me. So I just want to see if you didn't get it? Oh, God. All right, hang on. Let me send it again. Do you have a second? Do you have a minute so I can send it again and you can check? Because that's going to bug me. Okay. Give me 1 second, everybody. I just want to do this email really, really quick. Now, see, on my end, it shows sent. So I am not crazy, but we're going to do it again. That bugs me. No, my email works fine. It works fine. Everything is fine. This is going to work. I'm almost done. Okay. Says it's sent on my end. Man, that's irritating. Because I'm the one who actually sent it. It wasn't my assistant. Well, hello, Laura. Everything I'm manifesting with SP, other men is trying to give it to me. I'm not surprised, Jasmine. I'm not surprised. That makes sense. I hope you are aware that doesn't mean it's not going to come from your SP, though. That is just evidence that you are being what I would call the new self. The self that has the desire. That's your evidence. That's the validation. Or you could look at it as that's where you are or what reality you're in. So it's a good thing. Got it. Yay. Okay. Oh, sorry. I just scared Poop. Good. That's irritating, though. Because I said that to you I asked you that with all sorts of confidence, and I knew you were going to say yes. And then you didn't. Well, I look forward to our chat. Inspired Life. I am reading it so fast. With health or with Ash. Hello. What's up, Rhonda? Kim, I have 3 SPs, but I want to manifest dates with them first and then decide. So then you know exactly who you are, my friend. That's who you are. Identify with that. Nothing wrong with that. So you see yourself as that version of yourself. You know yourself to be that. And in my opinion, knowing why you can even do that is helpful. Meaning being of the awareness that your true self is the I am. Right? Everything else is choice. And there are no limits to those choices. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Kim. Love your YouTube videos. I appreciate that. Thank you. Watching you live after so long. Live after so long. Yay! I thought I timed this perfectly. My dog keeps jumping. I'm looking out the window because my boyfriend will be home from work soon, but hopefully long enough that we have plenty of time here. Thank you for being my daily routine. Well, thank you for including me in your daily routine. That makes me feel nice. You know what's weird? Is I got 40-something thousand here. 50,000 on YouTube, and even to this day, I don't know what I have on Instagram. Maybe 15, 16,000. I still, and I mean this in a good way. I don't mean this in a lacking way. I mean it as, I still think of it as, it's just me putting videos up and just a few people watch. Few people watch. I don't think it has hit me yet either. Like because I don't really babysit the subscriber count. I don't care. So I don't know. Does that make sense? I haven't found my techniques. What works for me, does only trusting the imagination work? I would say absolutely unequivocally. Because what's your imagination? What do you believe your imagination is? I look at the imagination as the gift from God. The gift. Our ability to choose from the infinite. No person outside of you, nothing outside of you can ever inhibit your access to your imagination. I used to call it the God connection, but being of the awareness that you are God. Careful! Oh, look, you're slipping. Settle down. So, yes. Can that be enough? Yes. Thank you for the gifts and everything, you guys. I know you guys have been sending stuff all along. Thank you very much. Thank you for liking I think that's what the hearts are. Thank you. I'm not surprised to have someone ask that question, because when I first found conscious manifestation, I would not have believed that just trusting my imagination was enough. I would not have believed that just making a conscious decision is enough to manifest. I would have doubted that completely. So I'm not surprised if people ask me the questions over and over again, and I'm not surprised if they're still having doubts. I consider that completely normal. Because I think having doubtful, fearful thoughts is part of the experience, and they don't have to limit you. But you, as your individual self, have that authority to not have it limit you. That's what I mean by that. So, yes, it's enough. It has changed my life. It has changed my life in every way possible. Again, to anybody that's newer and maybe you're really into your techniques, I'm not trying to turn you away from your techniques. If they feel good to you, well, then you do your techniques all you want. I'm saying that as you come into the knowing of what your true self is, that you're not just this meat sack. You're so much more than that. As far as what your soul, your spirit, what is running the show up here is pure, unadulterated consciousness. The I am. Unconditional love. Literally unconditioned. Once you really, really know that, and only you can decide if you know that or not. Once you do, you won't have to be locked to techniques ever again. And you'll understand why. You can just decide. So again, too, I'm not saying you have to wait until you have some magical download or this euphoric experience and consciousness. No. You might be someone that never has that experience, but that's not stopping you from manifesting. That doesn't make you less of pure, unadulterated consciousness. I used to think that was, why isn't that happening for me? Why am I not having these magical moments? What's wrong with my consciousness? I must be doing this wrong. No. I hate that I understand all of this on a logical level, but it's just not clicking for me. What isn't clicking for you? Thank you, Sandy Kane. That's my old friend Sandra, isn't it? How are you, my friend? That was very nice of you. Let's get her to 20K. That would be awesome. So what isn't clicking with you? What was your name? Kenzie. Everybody is doing right. LOL. You always get to the same thing. Doesn't matter what medium you use. Correct. How should deal with negative thoughts, memories when manifesting SP? They randomly pop in. Yeah, you notice that? You notice that? Notice how they just randomly pop in? You don't control them. They just randomly pop in. And that's because they don't fucking matter. They don't matter. They feel like they matter. When someone is teaching you this stuff or making content, coaching, whatever, and they deliver the message, that message can get skewed and misinterpreted. We begin to get afraid of our thoughts. So when those kind of thoughts pop in, they're frightening. We start worrying, oh my God, is that going to manifest? Am I never going to get over this? No, it's because those thoughts really don't matter. It's what you consciously decide they are. In other words, so what happened for me is I was in my own damn spiral a couple years ago. No, it's been over 3 years now. No, 26. A couple days, it'll be over 3 years. I was having a spiral right here in this position. And that's where my own download came in. I mean, I got a sarcastic kind of a mouth. So I was like, fuck it. Fuck this. It just doesn't matter. They don't matter. The only thing that matters is my decision of who I am. Change my life. Change my life. I don't sweat thoughts at all. You shouldn't either. You don't have to. But I had to be the one that came into the understanding. Because before that, I would dread my thoughts. Dread them. I must have been like waking up to the idea that the thoughts really don't matter. Because once I understood states of consciousness, a lot of my perception of the thoughts we get changed radically. But when I had that spiral, if I had had doubts before that, that solidified that I'll never worry about thoughts again. And I want to give you that gift. You don't have to worry about the thoughts. Can't you see? You don't control them. They come in on their own. If we were meant to control our thoughts, there would be a way to control them. We can quiet the mind, right? We could say like meditation. We can quiet the mind. But those thoughts eventually come back. And they're out of our control, per se. So they don't matter. And it's you acknowledging that belief for yourself. It doesn't matter. It's okay that that thought is there. No, you're not going to think about that shit for the rest of your life. They're going to fade as you keep evolving and shifting into the self you want to be, or the more you expand your awareness or rise in consciousness. So they're nothing to be afraid of. I know that really shitty thoughts, they don't feel good, especially if we're still having some kind of an internal reaction to them, but that will lessen the less you get upset or scared when they come in. Meaning, now that you're hearing me tell you, you don't have to worry about your thoughts. And then the next time one of those shitty thoughts come in, you remember me saying that to you. You're going to notice that your response to them is going to lessen, diminish. And then maybe one day you'll just be having a human day and maybe the thoughts are really bothering you. Maybe you get upset over them. So what? That moment, it's over. It's done. Get back up and remember who you are. And everything will be okay. Just like it was okay for me and anybody else who has listened to me. It's not going to keep your manifestation away from you. You know, try to think of it as, I know that some people teach this from the place of you have to reprogram or rewrite the subconscious mind. So that can make us feel like, oh my God, I'm still getting these thoughts. That must mean that my subconscious is still, holding on to shitty old beliefs and not going to change. What am I going to do? It's holding me captive. No, it's not. But let's say before the moment that you woke up to conscious manifestation, yes, you were living like, hold on a minute, this is annoying the shit out of me. Don't show for 10 minutes, please. Okay, all right. Before you were awake to being conscious or being aware that you can consciously manifest, you were living enslaved to the subconscious mind. We all were. Until you get the knowledge, until you wake up, until you figure this stuff out. And from there, some of us who have all the manifestation knowledge are still actually living enslaved to their subconscious. And that's unfortunate, but it can happen. And I know nobody wants to do that. We don't want to live enslaved to the Oh, thank you. I love those. So how do you get the chains off of you? You come into the understanding that the consciousness is the boss, not the subconscious. So the subconscious, yes, is running things from, let's say, an autopilot. We could call that a program. But the conscious mind is dictating what program it's running, if you feel limited by your subconscious. It's the only reason why I'm breaking it down that way, because I don't concern myself with the subconscious at all. I just know myself as source. But for any of you that are still in the belief that you have, a subconscious, conscious mind, think of it like that. And you don't have to take my word for it. Let me find, because I just recorded a video on this topic, and I brought up my Kindle version of Ernest Holmes, the Science of Mind. And hold on, I know I just highlighted it, so give me a sec. The conscious mind is the power that chooses. The subconscious is the power that acts. The subjective mind cannot argue or deny. You hearing that? So that the subjective mind, which is your subconscious, cannot argue or deny. Hear that word, deny. It cannot deny. It acts only upon what is given it. So, in truth, the subconscious is enslaved to the conscious mind. And this is where, my old wording, like, make a decision. Make a decision and stand in it. Neville Goddard, stand in conviction or brazen impudence. Make a decision over who you want to be and stand in it. And that decision, we could say that conviction, is what is dictating to the subconscious. See what I mean? I hope. So let's not worry about the thoughts that come in. They're meaningless. Thoughts are opportunities. Think of thoughts as little vehicles. So the thoughts we agree with. So let's think of some shitty thoughts. Let's say, SP's with a third party. That's a shitty one. So when that comes into your mind, anybody manifesting an SP or even maybe in a relationship now, maybe that gives you an feeling. We don't want that to manifest, do we? All right, so that thought comes in. I'm going to say, the more limited side of manifesting community is like, well, you got to get rid of that thought. You can't keep thinking that thought or it's going to manifest. Your mind isn't reprogrammed. That's why you're getting that thought. No, that's old world thinking. Think of like the Old Testament versus the New Testament. New Testament. I'm just using that terminology, all right? I'm being sarcastic. So, the new world, and that's you and I, we're in the new world. we're aware that thoughts are just opportunities to other frames. Frames, we could say realities, other versions of yourself, other identities. Call it what you will. So when the thought comes in, SB is with a third party. Yes, that's possible that it exists in the infinite. An infinite potential? Sure, it's a possibility. But is that what you're choosing? No. So we don't need to respond to that thought. That thought does not matter. You don't have to chase it away unless you want to. And if you want to, I would chase it with, yes, that can exist, but it's not what I'm choosing. It's not who I am. And that thought will pass by. And the less you react to it, you'll notice the less of the frequency that it returns. But the thought in of itself held no power until you give it power by claiming it. In a sense, consenting to it. So thoughts that we don't like, thoughts that, let's say, sound like a reality you don't want to go to, let them pass by. That's not who you're choosing to be. Nope. Let it float right on by, and it will. And like I said, the less we react, the sooner those type of thoughts stop. However, that doesn't mean you'll never ever have a doubt or a fear ever again, because we need to have all different thoughts. How else are we going to have the awareness of the other infinite potential realities? Thoughts are just opportunities, almost like you could say God or the universe, like in a restaurant, and you're sitting at the table waiting for the food to be delivered, but they never handed you a menu. Instead, they're just, well, no, we could have the menu. Think of your thoughts as they're all thoughts that are on the menu. They're choices. You can order this for dinner, or this, or this, or this. So all that whole menu is being shown to you, which is all the random thoughts that just pop in. And you're deciding which one you say yes to and agree with. And I do want to say, yes, doing nothing, just letting it float right on by, is perfection. Perfection. You don't need to chase away every single thought. The key is to not get lost in marinating in it. Because when let's say, for example, SPs were the third party that came in, maybe that gave, you a yucky feeling. And you know the feeling when you're listening to the thought. It's like, and then you're sitting in it, and then guess what happens? More shitty thoughts come, and more shitty thoughts, all surrounding that one thought. That's why we don't want to marinate, because we don't want to get stuck in the tunnel of more and more. Or tunnel? Wheel? Circle? We don't want to get stuck with it. We don't want more to come, because that does not feel good. And when we get stuck in it, in a sense, that's us saying yes to it. Yes to that reality. Yes to that version of ourselves. But here's the beauty of it. The moment you recognize what's happening and you return to your decision, like, I refuse to be that self. I refuse to believe that. This is who I am. And you remind yourself consciously of who you're choosing to be. I'm just going to say, I am the version of self in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. That is who I am. And just keeping it real, that was the exact wording that I used almost over 3 years ago that manifested my current relationship. So it worked. And that's all I did, was I made a decision that that's who I am. Does this make sense? I hope. What about changing your identity? Your story just feels impossible. Well, I'm not trying to tell you, no, you don't feel like that. It's the identity that you're inhabiting or embodying or lighting up right now that feels like it's impossible. The totality of who you are does not. At every given moment, literally every given moment, you have access to the infinite potential. So in other words, the infinite versions of you, the different choices you can make. There's a version of you who finds it so easy to change a story. In fact, there's a version of you who comfortably believes, knows that I don't even have to worry about fixing identities. I know that I can be a clean slate and just decide right now that this is who I am. That version of you exists, or we wouldn't even be able to think about that, right? We couldn't even conjure up that thought if it didn't exist already in infinite potential. So don't try to change or fix the identity necessarily. Instead, ponder, think about the version of you who finds it easy to do that. See what I mean? Put the focus on, what if it was easy? What if I could dump stories like a snap of my finger? What if I could just be the version of me who never has to worry about this shit anymore? I'm just the version of myself that already has whatever it is that I'm wanting, whatever it is that I'm manifesting. What about being the version of myself who's already got it, not worrying about fixing stories, fixing specific people? I just quantum jump my ass to the self that already has it all. You just, without pressure, without forcing yourself really to do anything, you let it be lighthearted, comfortable, and just you're pondering the thought. That's enough to move you. See what I mean? And by the way, I want to also say, when something feels impossible, number one, you could do what I just said to do. Or number two, that's a moment, in my opinion, to also then remind yourself that everything feels impossible when the person thinking that it's impossible is thinking that they're doing it all on their own. Just themselves, the ego self. Everything will feel impossible. And that's because you're experiencing in that moment what feels like separation. There is never true separation. So that's a good time to remind yourself that you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with God or universe, whatever wording you like. You're doing it with God. God is the air you breathe. God is your light, the essence of you, your soul, your spirit. You're not doing it by just your ego self. And we don't need to demonize the ego either. So don't think that I'm saying that when I mention the ego. Ego is not our enemy. Ego is how we get to experience believing we are these individual selves. I got so much movement. Now the opposite is happening. Okay, whoa. Let's not immediately call it the opposite, but I know you're just saying it to me so I can, answer your question. But okay, today we stop saying that. Now, I believe you that you are experiencing the opposite, but if you were the version of yourself who had whatever it is you're manifesting, would that version of you look out at reality and think that? Or would that version of you, let me give you an example. Let's say you're manifesting a specific person and you have had constant contact lately with your person. They've been, texting you every single day. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they didn't text you this morning. You didn't get your morning text. And your instinct is to, your antennas go up. Why? What's going on? Why didn't I get my morning text? And then maybe you get a text later in the day. And then the next morning, the morning text didn't come again. That's 2 days in a row. Oh, yeah. What is going on? See, my old self would say, there it is. He doesn't love me. He's fallen out of love with me. He can't send me a morning message. That's not love. That's not love. Who else is he talking to? Who's he sending messages to? I used to go to immediate negative. Clearly, that wasn't the version of me who believed she was in the reality where she was experiencing a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. Or else I wouldn't think that way. In fact, it probably, if I was the version of myself that had the relationship, that probably wouldn't even have caught my attention. It wouldn't have mattered, because that version of me would feel so comfortable that she's loved, that her person is faithful, blah, 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 blah. So long story short, your movement didn't stop. Movement never stops. I know from the logical, literal perspective, it may feel that way, but it never stops. So your duty, not really your duty, but what I suggest is get back to knowing who you are choosing to be. So if you're manifesting a relationship and you're talking about an SP manifestation, get back to knowing yourself as being in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship, and remembering that the 3D reality might not always look like we think it should on our manifestation journey. It might not, but that doesn't mean it's stopped or it's going backwards or that you're losing it. Doesn't mean that. That's the trap that I see so many people fall into. Get back to being the self you want to be. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. I know that's easy for me to say, but I'm talking from experience, especially the SP journey. I've got a lot of experience there. Everything will be fine. See, the instinct is to immediately think something bad's happening. Oh my God, my movement stopped. What if this doesn't work out? What if he or she finds someone else? Blah, blah, blah. No. That's the old self thinking. So are we going to allow ourselves to roll back into the old pattern of thinking? Or are we going to return to our decision anyway? Our body might still feel the anxiety or the discomfort, but that doesn't mean anything. That body will catch up as you return. Return anyway. My favorite saying was, I refuse to be old self. I refuse it. And then I would remind myself, I am the version of self in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. And I can choose that because I am that I am. Right? That's who my true self is. Unconditioned consciousness. I know what self I'm selecting. So I'm not going to let the world of the senses tell me who I am. That's how we lived when we were muggles, not awake to conscious manifestation. Muggles lose their shit in the 3D when things look like they're not going in the right direction. That's how a muggle will handle it. We don't handle that anymore, right? We don't need everything to look what our ego self thinks it needs to look like in order to know who you are. You choose who you are anyway. I am that I am. Remember that. You'll see your movement will start up again. You'll be like, oh my God, she was so right. She was so right. So do me a favor and come back and put that in the comments so you can encourage other people. Because everybody experiences doubt. I don't care who you are. Everybody has their doubtful, fearful moments on this journey. And by journey, I just mean your evolution journey as you're rising in consciousness. Thank you, Brittany. Kim's always right. I know. No. I love being right. Oh, it's so exhausting being right all the time. That's what I say to my boyfriend. Sorry, I love being sarcastic. Because of you, I am now living life as a muralist. Oh my God, that's wonderful. Congratulations, my friend. It was because of you. You did it, my friend. You did it. Is your lifetime goal. I think I remember chit-chatting with you in live streams. Oh, well done. We got to get that boyfriend to make an appearance. Brittany Brooks, were you on the YouTube live stream where he finally made his appearance? If not, I think if it wasn't the last YouTube live I did, then it might have been like the next one. Let's say the last 3 live streams I did, it's one of those where he did it. He did it, and I didn't have to provoke. I didn't have to bug him, right? I didn't have to force him. He did it on his own. he kept putting his face into the window because he was grilling while I was going live. And I didn't notice him at first. If you look back at the footage now, I mean, it's funny to look at because I totally don't see him. He clearly is trying to get my attention. So he moves his head like in 3 different places on the window. And finally, I think it was actually Handsome Squidward who put in the chat, your SP is either your SP is behind you or your SP is looking at you. And I read that and I looked up and I saw his face clear as day. And if you zoom in on it, you know who my man is. And if anybody's new, if you're wondering why the hell are we talking about boyfriend getting on a camera, it's because he did not want to get on camera. You know, I felt like we were baby stepping. First, it started with he let me leave his voice in on, because I have another channel called Kimberly's Other Life, which is, well, I'm talking about YouTube. So on YouTube, I have the Manifesting with Kimberly channel. And then I have the Kimberly's Other Life channel. That is literally what it sounds like. It's all the other parts of my life without manifestation, even though I still end up talking about manifestation over there sometimes. So let's keep it real. I can't. It's part of my life always. But like in little baby steps, he would let me leave his voice in on the audio for some of my content, right? Because I'm recording here all the time. I have the 2 channels or the 2 YouTube channels. So sometimes he's here and I need to record videos. Well, anyway, so that was movement, him allowing the audio. And then it was he would come to the live streams for the Manifesting with Kimberly channel and he would talk, but he wouldn't get on actual camera. And that, he did it, folks. He did it. I told y'all that it would happen. I told you. He showed his appearance once before. Oh, that's right. When he sat next to you on the couch a long time ago. You are right. I forgot about that. Well, I remember you saying that you'd hope he'd let you have him online, even if it's in steps. I love you for validating me that I did say it. I said it. And it happened. See? See, you don't have to force things to happen. They'll happen all on their own in a way that you least expect. I had no clue, no nothing that he was going to do that day. Not a clue. And it wasn't on my mind either. So there you go, folks. I remember you manifested that 2 years ago, Kim. You're right. I forgot, Miss Pretty Kitty. You are right. There is actually a much older live stream where he did blip in, but I didn't count it as it happened at that time because it was like I don't know. I should have counted it. So thank God you guys remember that. But yes, I was like, wait, that already happened. Yeah, you are all right. And I had forgotten. So yeah, it happened a long time ago, but I guess if you didn't get his appearance in that old video, well, now we got him making it very clear that he's getting on camera. So movement then, the opposite, is part of the bridge of incidents. Everything is. So yes, to that question, everything is. The minute, think of it like this. Sincerely, Jesus, poop. The minute you decide who you are, instantaneously things are moving to bring it about. I know it doesn't always feel that way, but things are moving to bring it about. So literally everything you're experiencing is a part of your fulfillment. Everything is, even the opposite. And listen, and think about all the stories we hear of people manifesting their specific person. And, they tend to find manifestation in the midst of a solo vacation or in the midst of a breakup. And we could look at that as, what the hell? That's the opposite of what we want. And say they start manifesting their person, and then maybe a month down the road, they manifest them back. And then they forget who they are and slip into the old patterns of thinking, and maybe they manifest another breakup, another solo vacation. And clearly I'm the example. That's exactly what I did. I did it twice. That's why I say I'm pretty experienced. I'm manifesting people back. But it was because I did slip into old patterns, 100%. Anyway, but even those manifestations, which a breakup looks like that's pretty much the opposite of me manifesting a relationship, right? Of course, when I first experienced it, like when it first happened, I was hurt, worried, afraid I wasn't going to get what I wanted, couldn't understand why it was happening. It made me doubt manifestation. I started thinking all of this was a bunch of garbage. But no, looking back, I can see clearly why they happened and how they were like integral parts of my evolution. So, yes, even the opposite is a part of the unfolding. And remember, too, we have the decision on how we label things. So, let's say, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I can't remember how far back, but whenever I manifested that second solo vacation, when it first manifested, I instinctively labeled it bad. This is bad. This is manifestation failure. This stuff doesn't work. I didn't want to hear anybody talking about manifestation because I was upset. Like I said, I thought that it failed because how was a breakup a part of an unfolding? Because that didn't make logical sense. This is why I say logic is not our friend unless we're using it to our benefit. It was through that second solo vacation where I learned or had let me reword. My light bulb moment happened where I fully understood states of consciousness. So I look at it now, I'm like, that needed to happen. Because otherwise I wouldn't have changed. I would have kept in my victim state. That forced me to take an authentic look at who I was being and understanding just how important that little part is. So to a logical person, that looks like something bad. But we are in control of the meanings we give. So that it is that experience that helped me start the belief or the habit that I don't care what shows up. Even if something shows up that upsets me, makes me cry, blah, 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 I will still, at the end of the day, look at it as it's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason. That reason is my benefit. I just don't clearly see what the benefit is right now. And that's okay if we don't. We don't have to like every circumstance or experience. We don't have to pretend we're okay with every circumstance or experience. It's okay to not like what 3D is showing you. But at the end of the day, we can be aware of not liking it while still being in the awareness, so in identity, that it is somehow, some way connected to me getting what I want or to get my desire or, whatever wording you use. And it will be. And like I said, you might not see it right now as you're living it. But at some point, you are going to be able to look back at it in hindsight and see perfectly why it happened. And it will make sense to you. You notate me saying that because I'm telling you, I'm going to be right. And you're going to think, oh my gosh, she was so right. Because I am. That sounded so shitty, but I meant that in the most loving way. Should I name the shit version of my SP Carlos? Oh my God. Our girl Sarah has started a movement. I am so sorry to any Carloses out there. I'm so sorry. I'm sure there are very favorable Carloses out there. If you don't know what she's talking about, our girl, I think she's pretty kid, Mrs. Pretty Kitty. She shared with us that, when her SP is not the version she prefers, she renames him to Carlos. Which I think is funny. See them as different versions. See, I think that's helpful. That's why I'm like, I love that when she put it in the chat because, like my favorite Neville Goddard line, let the dead bury the dead. Let the dead bury the dead. In other words, that version of your person that you do not like, let the dead bury the dead. Don't give them attention anymore. Don't give them focus, attention, awareness time anymore. Put the focus on the version of them you prefer. Let the dead bury the dead. I love that. It's one of my favorite lines. Anyway. All right. This is where I must leave, my friends. I have had a wonderful time with you all. And I hope to go maybe live again this weekend. I'm not sure which day yet, but my intention is to. So thank you very much for being here with me today. And I shall hopefully see you very soon. I hope you all have fabulous rest of your weekend.